mode.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. This webinar is about Head Start Bus Evacuation Drill Services. I'm Bea Nichols, Director of Children's Services, and joining me today is my colleague, Julia Talbot. I'm going to turn it over to you, Julia, for housekeeping.
Thank you, Bea. So, due to, we always just have everybody on mute, please put your questions, should you have them, into the question box, and we will answer them there. And like let's see, here's our agenda. And so I'm Julia Talbot. I work in the contracts and policy divisions here at DFSS. And I am very happy to have you guys come today. It's an interesting opportunity, one that we've put out a lot. Bea is going to start us off and talk about the program, and then I'm going to follow up and talk a little bit about the timeline and do a little technical assistance, and then we'll have time for questions. Although, if you want to type your questions in, while they come up, we're happy to address them, as long as it's not on the next slide. So just take it away, Bea.
Thank you, Julia. And yes, please use the chat box. That way we can keep a record of your questions. And if we have to do any amendments, we have your record right there. So thank you, Julia. The purpose of the RFP. We are the City of Chicago, and one of the primary social services providers and administrators is the Department of Family and Support Services, or DFSS. We manage a very comprehensive, client-oriented human service delivery system that employs a holistic approach to improving the quality of life for our most vulnerable citizens. DFSS administers resources and provides assistance and support to a network of community-based organizations to promote the independence and well-being of individuals, to support families and strengthen Chicago neighborhoods. The DFSS mission is working with community partners. We connect Chicago residents and families to resources that build stability, support their well-being, and empower them to strive. To this end, the DFSS manages Chicago Early Learning, or SEL, programs throughout the City of Chicago. We do this in partnership with a network of delegate agencies in community-based settings. SEL is composed of federally funded Head Start and Early Head Start programs, and then our state-funded Preschool for All, or PFA, and Prevention Initiative programs, PI. Included in SEL programs are provisions to provide learning extensions for children and families by way of pedestrian safety training and bus evacuations. Next slide. To give you a little bit of the background, DFSS is currently seeking a transportation provider to ensure completion of 3 required on-site bus evacuation drills per site, per program year, to enroll children, staff, and volunteers. These services will be provided to the SEL sites listed on attachment A. You can find that on page, I believe it's the 4th page, where it says attachment A site directory of the RFP. There are 62 sites here that you will notice. They are Head Start agencies. DFSS understands that agencies may, with their own contracted funding, request other transportation services with the awarded provider. These services could include field trips and special events. Any transportation services outside of bus evacuation drills will be paid for by that sales agency and not by DFSS. Next slide. The goals. The selected transportation provider agrees to provide all required bus evacuation drills in a timely and efficient manner. The transportation provider also agrees to follow the established transportation policies and operating procedures of the department. DFSS serves SEL children and families across the entire city, and the selected transportation provider would need to be able to coordinate evacuations effectively and efficiently to the entire service area. Next slide. Our target population are made up of federally funded Head Start and Early Head Start programs and state-funded Preschool for All and Prevention Initiative programs. Head Start provides services to approximately 1,489 children, ranging from 3 to 5 years old, in a variety of settings in approximately 62 sites. And again, a list of these sites can be found on page 4 and 5 of the RFP. Next slide. Program requirements. Now, again, for the detailed information and scope of requirements, I'm going to refer you to the RFP beginning on page 5, but we've highlighted some for you here. Contractor qualifications, requirements, and responsibilities. All driver records will be maintained, which includes but is not limited to the driver's license, certifications, record, the results of criminal, drug, and background tests, and driving investigations. DFSS reserves the right to ask that a bus driver be removed from providing service for any reason during the term of the contract. The contract will require the use of both standard passenger school buses and school buses equipped to transport children in wheelchairs. Harnesses and other standard age, size, and weight appropriate child restraints will also be provided by the contract. Selected respondents and all employees involved in the bus evacuation drills for children and parents served by DFSS must meet the requirements of DCFS licensing standards, the Head Start program performance standards, and follow all applicable requirements for students 3 to 5 years of age, as outlined by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and all local mandates and regulations. DFSS anticipates requesting approximately 186 bus evacuation drills, as mentioned previously, 3 per site, serving 62 individual sales programs. A single provider will be awarded. The provider will be selected based on overall qualifications and the highest score. Next slide. Performance goals and outcomes. DFSS seeks respondents with evidence of strong past performance against desired outcome goals. Performance indicators include tracking progress towards achieving program goals, and to assess program success, DFSS will monitor a set of performance indicators. These may include, but are not limited to, the number of evacuation drills requested and completed, number of delays, timely and accurate submission of billing, and number of founded customer complaints. Next slide. Now we'll take a look at the 4 primary selection criteria that DFSS will use. The first is strength of proposed program. The respondent clearly defines the specific services they will provide, including a discussion of how they intend to provide the requested number of evacuation drills directly or through partnerships with other companies, or the maximum number of drills they are capable of providing. Next slide. The second criteria is performance management and outcomes. The respondent demonstrates historical evidence of achieving desired and articulated outcomes. The respondent demonstrates the ability to leverage data to identify areas for improvement. And for this particular criteria, I would just draw your attention to pages 10 and 11, where it identifies breakdowns in accidents, delays, and complaints. You may want to describe what your company has done to make those improvements. Next slide. This criteria is organizational capacity. So the respondent has the staff capacity to operate the program, both administratively and operationally. The respondent has adequate staff, systems, and processes to support vouchering, reporting, and monitoring for government contracts. The respondent indicates that it has provided its drivers with appropriate training on how to interact with 3 to 5-year-old children, provides on-the-job supervision and feedback regularly, and evaluates its drivers. The respondent's organization reflects and engages the diversity of people in its communities. The respondent tracks and maintains files on driver training, evaluations, background, and driver's license checks. The respondent provides COVID-19 policies and procedures that are in accordance with CDC guidelines. The respondent indicates an adequate fleet size, including vehicles meeting ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act requirements, and indicates how many harnesses it owns or how it will procure them. And then the requested accident packet is submitted and evidences a clear protocol. It outlines the types of documentation to be collected and the level of detail required. Next slide. And then the last selection criteria is reasonable costs, budget justification, and leverage of costs of funds. The respondent demonstrates reasonable implementation costs and funding requests relative to its financial and human resources. The proposed budget supports the proposed scope of work or work plan. The respondent proposes a reasonable per unit rate, given the nature of the services provided, and provides a justification for the level of funding requested. The respondent indicates that it has access to the appropriate type and number of child safety restraints. Next slide. So some of the attachments that we'll be looking for and we need you to upload is the driver performance evaluation. So you may be using a template for that evaluation. We would like to be able to see that. Your COVID-19 policies and procedures, your accident reporting form, handouts or documentation of driver training concerning managing and interacting with the preschool population, and then your cost proposal. Next slide. So these are the timeframes, selection and transition timeline. Pre-proposal webinar today, February 17th. Applications are due March 25th 2022 at noon Central Standard Time. Program period begins April 1st, 2022 through November 30th, 2023. Next slide. Again, applications are due March 25th, 2022 at noon Central Standard Time. And now I'll be turning it over to my colleague, Julia.
Let's be, just for a quiz, when is the application due? So I am now going to, that was the program portion of our RFP. I am now going to go on and do some application tips on how to best do an application in the e-procurement environment. That is what the only way that you can get an application reviewed by the City of Chicago is to put it through e-procurement. So if you have never done business with the City of Chicago, you should register your business into iSupplier. You start an account with iSupplier, and that allows you to access the e-procurement platform, which is where our applications are housed. If you haven't done this before, you really should. It takes a few days to set up the account because you put in some information, then you get a link, which usually goes to your junk or spam file, and then you have to click on the link to continue setting that up, and that's done through the Department of Procurement Services, and it often takes a few days. So give yourself the most time and start that application early if you haven't already gotten yourself into iSupplier. I often recommend that you should review the application narrative and applications questions closely, and remember that when we develop an RFP document, that we actually align everything. So the scope and narrative portions really inform our application questions, and all of those things align with the selection criteria that is outlined in the RFP document itself. And so you should really use the information in that RFP document to give guidance as to the direction that you might want to go in, or what we're really looking for from an applicant or potential contractor. I always tell people to carefully review the selection criteria because it is in alignment with the application questions, the scope, and also our evaluation tools, and that there is a 4,000 character limit to all of our questions. So each unique question or requirement, quote value, I believe it's called, is limited to 4,000 characters, which includes punctuation and spaces. So it's each response, not the whole thing, is 4,000 characters. And 4,000 characters is about 2/3 of a page. E-procurement was developed on an Oracle platform, and it works best with the Internet Explorer browser, which nobody uses anymore. It also works on pretty much everything else: Mozilla, Firefox. It works on Chrome. It works on Safari. If you are finding that the system is really just giving you a hard time and not working well with your particular computer, try it on Internet Explorer as kind of like a troubleshooting guide. Pro tip would be to not use the back button on your browser, because when you do that, e-procurement stops recording your answers, and then ultimately you'll get an error message. It will kick you out. When you log back in, you'll find that nothing that you did was saved if you use that back button. So you use the, like you put in an answer, you use the back button. It pretends that it's working, but when everything that you do after you use that back button is not going to be retained in the system. So just don't use it. This is something that I should just put it on a huge post-it on my wall, because I forget frequently. You can submit your application in the e-procurement system up until the due date, and you can amend it. So if you want to submit and then you're like, oh no, I forgot something, you can pull it back. You can do that up until that March 25th due date, 12 noon. I tell people to avoid the rush and possible mishaps by submitting early. Plan on your submissions taking 30 to 60 minutes. Late applications are not accepted under any circumstances, and we actually cannot accept late applications. The system doesn't allow it, and we can't accept anything except for the stuff that's in e-procurement. And then if you have questions or you're having a hard time, B and myself's contact information will be the last slide on this webinar, but I tell people to make use of the E-Procurement Hotline. It's 312-744-4357 or 744-HELP. The hotline operates Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And as I like to say, with all things RFP, save often and submit early. So if you are looking for a little bit more technical assistance, or you're interested in the other opportunities that the city has to offer or DFSS has to offer, you can go to the DFSS website and see what DFSS has in terms of funding opportunities. That's under the alerts section and under the funding opportunities section on our website. Again, if you don't want to call for technical support, you can do customer support at cityofchicago.org or call the helpline. And if you're a person that really likes to learn through videos, training documents, PowerPoints, that kind of stuff, there's a lot of training materials on the City of Chicago iSupplier website under online training materials, and there's all sorts of PowerPoints and videos that you can watch to learn how to do some basic functions within the e-procurement environment. The stuff that would be most relevant for this RFP would be under the delegate H&C column. So I like to do just a brief walkthrough of how to do two very common functions in the e-procurement environment. The first is how to accept an amendment, and then I'll talk about how to do a submission. So accepting an amendment, we do amendments for a lot of reasons, but mostly what we do for our amendments are done for to capture the questions that are asked during this webinar or any other questions that we receive that need to be posted for the group, the group of the applicants. So the likelihood of you having to accept an amendment as part of your application are pretty high. So in this slide, we're going to show, how an amendment has been posted. If you see here, the circle in the upper left-hand side, it says that you've had the amendment. You can click on this blue thing. It says View Amendment History. You can click on that to see the history of the amendment. If you were trying to start an application, you would do this actions bar on the right-hand side, hit the create quote, and then push on the go button. And that will take you to this screen here. So the screen, this is where you can see what the amendment is. And you'll see through the next steps that what we're really interested in is that you acknowledge that you have read the amendment and you are willing to be held responsible for the application of what the content of that amendment says. And it can be, amendments can do everything from correct tiny errors to changing the due date or really substantial stuff. So they're really worth taking a look at. So you'll see here on the circled one, to get to the RFP document and to the amendment attachment, you can click on this, the document number. In the middle here, it talks about a brief description of what the amendment has, going on, why you should read it. And then here on the circle number 2, the little eyeglass or infinity button is where you can go and review the changes in the amendment, in the application. After you've familiarized yourself with all of this stuff, you're going to acknowledge the amendment by clicking on the Acknowledge Amendment button, which is in the upper and lower right-hand side. That will take you to this screen where you accept your acknowledgement. And so you're going to do that by clicking on this tiny button, and then just clicking the acknowledgement button on the right-hand side. Pretty much all of your clicking happens on the right-hand side for e-procurement. Then you're going to get this confirmation screen where you have to confirm your acknowledgement. Well, you'll say yes. I don't really know what happens if you say no, but just say yes because you've already acknowledged and accepted all these things, so now you're confirming. And then this is a final step where you check that you have accepted the terms and conditions of the RFP and the amended RFP specifically. And you'll do that by checking this small box saying you've read and accepted the terms and conditions, and then you're going to hit the accept button again on the upper or lower right-hand side of the screen. And after that, you will have accepted your amendment, and you will be able to go back in to your the amended document. If you'd already started an RFP, it will, by accepting the amendment, it will pull everything that you already have put into your application into the new amended application screens, and you'll be good to go. Now we're going to talk about how to submit an application. As I said, usually give yourself 30 to 60 minutes. I really stress that people should do this the day before, if at all possible, if only because while you can call upon myself or the E-Procurement Hotline people for technical assistance, you know, there might be a line. You know, all of our RFPs are due at 12 o'clock. If somebody else's RFP is due, you know, the chances are that, you know, if you have to, you know, if you have a problem at 11:45 and somebody else also has a problem and they get there first, then, you know, that's putting your ability to get the technical assistance that you need and submit successfully in jeopardy. So we really don't want to do that. In this screen, we're going to, you know, which is starting how to subdue your application submission, you're going to save your draft one last time, and then you're going to click continue. When you click continue, E-Procurement is going to basically do a scan of all of your application and kind of look for sort of the low-hanging fruit kinds of problems. It doesn't do content, but it just makes, it's going to do like, is anything missing, you know, or is anything weird? I'm going to talk about two very common error messages that people get. So one is that you must quote at least one line of the RFQ, and that means that, you know, you have to do this, go to this lines tab and then fill out the lines. Now, in this case, the lines has to do with a budget. For this application or this RFP, we have a cost proposal that you need to upload and fill out. We actually don't use the lines until we go to contract, and until then, you know, at that point, so whatever you put into the lines is not going to be evaluated, but it's placeholder stuff that E-Procurement's going to want you to do. So you'll click on the lines, you'll fill in whatever number you want. We're really not going to look at it. We're going to look at the cost proposal that you upload and go on your merry way. A second very common error message is something here. It says the quote value is required for the requirement first name. And in this case, the requirement here is indicating sort of the body of questions, application questions. The quote value is the answer, you know, the answer that's limited to 4,000 characters, including punctuation and spaces. And then the requirement name is first name. It's merely saying, like, you didn't put the first name in, that's a required field, please put in the first name. And so once you resolve, you know, you put in the first name, you save again, and then you'll be able to go on your merry way. At some point, you know, you're gonna keep hitting that continue, the save, continue, and at some point you're going to be out of errors. It'll be your application will be perfect, and then you'll get this review and submit phase. And at that point, you'll be able to scroll down through your entire application and see all of your answers. And so you'll see here, you know, like, this is your last chance to review all your data and confirm that it's accurate. Check your attachments, and then you'll scroll to the bottom of the screen and you'll see all of your responses on the way down. When you get to the bottom of that screen, you're going to see a place for putting your electronic signature. And so you're going to first put in your name and then your title, and then you're going to click the box. If you click the box first, you'll get an error message saying that you need to put in your title. And then, because it doesn't fit on one screen in a way that everybody is readable, you will then look over to the right-hand side and you'll see the submit button. And then you click on submit, and you have submitted your application. Congratulations. At this point, after you hit submit, you'll get this confirmation screen. And then within 24 hours of your submission, you should get a confirmation email from the e-procurement system that goes out to the email associated with the application that, you know, to the email that is associated with this particular application. So that is how you do a submission. We talked about amendments, and really now we're just going to open it up for questions. And if you come up with questions later, please feel free to reach out to B or myself. I am the person that you would ask non-programmatic questions of. B is the person that would take the programmatic questions. But I thank you very much for your time today. We're looking forward to seeing your applications. And thank you for considering this opportunity with the City of Chicago to serve the kids of Head Start. B?
Yes, thank you. And feel free to reach out to us. We're here for you. Any questions? Well, Julia?
If there are no questions, then I think we're going to conclude this webinar. Please feel free to reach out to us later if you decide that you have some questions, and have a wonderful rest of your Thursday.
Bye-bye.
Take care.